Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere you think you know. We're stepping past the postcards of Santorini, past the gleaming white marble of the Acropolis, and into a world not of gods and heroes, but of grit, sweat, and survival. Because tonight we're not talking about Plato's Republic or the birth of democracy. We're talking about the body, your body, and how ancient Greece, the cradle of Western thought, was also a relentless machine designed to break it. This isn't the world of epic poems. This is the world of aching bones and empty stomachs, a civilization built on a foundation of hardship so profound you'd barely recognize it as human. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to peel back the varnish of history. Let me know in the comments what time it is where you are and what image first comes to mind when you hear the words ancient Greece's. I have a feeling we're about to shatter it. Now dim the lights, maybe find a quiet corner, and let's descend into the real world together. Forget the travel brochures. Forget the shimmering turquoise water and the whitewashed villages clinging to cliffs. That is a fantasy. A 21st century mirage projected onto the bones of a much harsher reality. Your Mediterranean paradise is a lie. The world you wake up in is not one of gentle sea breezes and the scent of olive groves. It is a world of dust, a fine, gritty, inescapable dust that coats your tongue, cakes in the corners of your eyes, and settles on every surface of your life like a thin shroud of earth. It's the dust of sun-scorched fields, the dust of unpaved roads churned by donkey hooves and sandaled feet, the dust of your own slowly crumbling mud brick home. The air itself is an assault. In the summer, it doesn't caress, it suffocates. Heat in ancient Greece isn't a mood. It's a physical predator. It's a heavy, wet blanket of humidity that presses down on you from the moment the sun crests the horizon, turning the very act of breathing into a chore. There is no escape. No shade offers real relief, only a slightly less intense version of the slow-cooking oven that is the world outside. The sun isn't a golden orb of life. It's a merciless white glare that beats down on the landscape, bleaching the color from the hills and reflecting off the stony ground with a blinding intensity that makes your eyes ache. And the smells. You don't smell the salty tang of the Aegean. You smell the goat that sleeps in the corner of your single-room house. You smell the pungent, ammonia-sharp stench of the chamber pot you emptied into the street this morning. A street that serves as everyone's open-air sewer. You smell the metallic tang of blood from the butcher's stall down the lane, where flies swarm in a thick, buzzing cloud. You smell rot, the sweet, sickly perfume of vegetables left too long in the heat, the rank odor of refuse piled in the alleyway. And beneath it all, you smell the dense, unwashed scent of humanity itself. 1,000 bodies sweating in woolen tunics, their breath soured by bad teeth and meager diets. This isn't a paradise. It's a sensory siege. The soundtrack to your life is not the gentle strumming of a lyre. It's a cacophony. It's the incessant buzzing of flies, the braying of a neighbor's donkey, the sharp crack of a whip, the shouting of merchants in the agora, the hacking cough of the old man next door who has been dying for a year. There is no peace, no quiet contemplation, unless you are wealthy enough to own land far from the city's chaotic heart. For you, life is loud, abrasive, and claustrophobic. The pests are not a minor annoyance. They are your constant companions. Lice in your hair and bedding, fleas that leave your ankles a roadmap of itchy red welts, and rats that rustle in the thatch roof at night, their claws like tiny daggers, scraping just above your head. This isn't a vacation. This is a battle for inches of personal space in a world that offers none. A daily struggle to carve out a moment of comfort in an environment that is actively hostile to it. The gleaming marble you see in museums, that was for the gods. Your world is one of cracked earth, splintered wood, and the relentless, oppressive weight of the sun. Now, let's talk about the vessel you inhabit on this journey. Your body. Forget the statues. Forget the gem-sculpted, perfectly proportioned marble figures that populate our museums. Those are not representations of the average Greek. They are an impossible ideal, a piece of propaganda carved in stone. Your body is not a temple. It is a failing machine, a tool that begins to break down from the moment you are old enough to work, which is the moment you are old enough to walk. It begins with your teeth. By the time you are 20, your mouth is a landscape of ruin. Your diet of coarse barley bread, filled with stone-ground grit, has worn your molars down to sensitive nubs. You have at least one tooth that throbs with a dull, constant ache, a fire of infection deep in the jaw that no amount of chewing on a willow twig can extinguish. When it flares up, the pain is a white-hot agony that makes it impossible to eat, sleep, or think. There are no dentists, no painkillers, beyond a sip of watered-down wine. The men who might offer to help are butchers with pliers, whose solution is a brutal, septic extraction that might kill you faster than the infection itself. So you live with it. Your breath is foul, a constant reminder of the decay happening inside you. You learn to smile with your lips closed, to hide the brown stumps and black gaps that betray your youth. A healthy set of teeth is a sign of wealth and leisure you will never know. Your back is next. It starts as a dull ache in your teens, and by 30, it is a permanent state of being. Whether you are a farmer bent over the unforgiving soil, a potter hunched over a wheel, or a woman hauling heavy clay jars of water from the public fountain every single day, your spine is slowly compressing under the load. There is no concept of ergonomics, no physical therapy, no rest. The pain is a fire in your lower back that never goes out. It is the first thing you feel when you wake on your straw mat, and the last thing you feel as you try to find a position that doesn't send daggers of agony up your spine at night. It shapes the way you walk, with a slight shuffling stoop. It is a physical testament to a life of unceasing labor. Your hands tell a similar story. They are not soft, they are gnarled, calloused, and scarred. The joints of your fingers are swollen and stiff, early arthritis, setting in from the repetitive motions of weaving, grinding grain, or gripping the handle of a plow. In the winter, the cold turns this stiffness into a sharp, brittle pain, and your fingers crack open in bleeding fissures that you smear with animal fat, praying they don't get infected. These are not the hands of a philosopher gesturing thoughtfully. They are the ruined claws of a survivor. And your skin, the Mediterranean sun you dream of, is, for you, a relentless tormentor. You are burned, then burned again. Your skin, especially on your face, neck, and arms, becomes a leathery mask, prematurely aged and cross-hatched with deep wrinkles. Sores and cuts that would be minor annoyances today become life-threatening crises. A simple scratch from a thorn can fester in the grime, swelling into a hot, pus-filled abscess. Without antibiotics, this is a lottery. Maybe your body fights it off, leaving a puckered, ugly scar. Or maybe the infection spreads, poisoning your blood and sending you into a fever from which you never wake up. Your body is a roadmap of these near misses, a canvas of scars, old wounds, and sun damage. It is a machine running on fumes, patched together with hope and sheer resilience, perpetually on the verge of a catastrophic breakdown from which there is no recovery. This exhausted, aching, decaying vessel is your only home in a hostile world. The very things meant to sustain this failing machine, food and water, are its most treacherous enemies. They are a daily betrayal, a constant source of anxiety and danger. Every meal, every sip is a gamble. Let's begin with water, the source of all life. For you, it is also a primary vector of death. There are no pipes running to your home, no filtration systems, no boiling standards. Your morning routine involves a back-breaking walk to the nearest public fountain or well, a place of social gathering. Yes, but also a cauldron of contamination. You watch as animals drink from the same source, their slobber mingling with the water you will carry home to your children. You see your neighbors, some of them visibly ill, dipping their unwashed hands and buckets into the same communal basin. The runoff from the street, a slurry of animal waste, human refuse, and garbage, seeps into the ground, tainting the very aquifer you draw from. You know this instinctively. The water often has a faint, unpleasant taste, a murky quality you try to ignore, so you do what everyone does. You cut it with cheap, sour wine, not for pleasure, but for preservation. The alcohol acts as a crude disinfectant, killing some of the invisible poisons lurking in every cup. This daily dose of wine, given even to children, is not a luxury. It's a desperate daily act of self-medication against an omnipresent threat. But even this precaution often fails. Dysentery is not a rare affliction. It is a seasonal plague. A simple case of what you call a bad stomach can escalate into a week of agonizing cramps, bloody flux, and a fever that leaves you weak and delirious. It is a slow, dehydrating death sentence. You have seen it happen to your neighbors, to their children. You have seen bodies waste away, reduced to skin and bone, by an enemy they drank from a cup. Every time you are thirsty, a part of you is afraid. You raise the clay jug to your lips, and you take a calculated risk. Then there is the food. The foundation of your diet is bread, not the light, airy loaf you might imagine, but a dense, often stale brick of barley called maza. It is gritty. The grain is stone ground, and tiny particles of rock are ground in with it, slowly but surely wearing your teeth down to nothing. Cracking a molar on a piece of stone in your daily bread is not an unusual occurrence, and this bread is rarely clean. It sits in your home, which is open to the elements and to pests. Flies land on it, laying their eggs. Weevils burrow into your grain stores. Mold, with its fuzzy green-black bloom, is a constant battle. You scrape it off and eat the bread anyway, because to waste it is to starve. Food poisoning is a fact of life. The fish you buy at the agora might have been sitting in the sun for a day too long. The goat cheese might be teeming with harmful bacteria. There are no expiration dates, no health inspectors, no refrigeration. Your senses are your only guide, and they can easily be fooled. The consequences are violent and swift. Hours of vomiting, cramping so intense, it feels like your insides are being twisted into knots. For a healthy adult, it is a hellish ordeal. For a child or an elder, it can be fatal. The food that is meant to give you strength is just as likely to leave you prostrate, weak, and empty. It is a cruel paradox. The gnawing emptiness of hunger is a constant torment, but the act of filling your stomach is fraught with its own unique terror. You chew your gritty bread and sip your tainted water, and you understand that in ancient Greece, survival is not just a struggle against the world outside. It is a war waged within your own gut. You do not have a job. You do not have a career. You do not have weekends or holidays. or the concept of retirement. You have labor, a relentless, bone-grinding, soul-crushing cycle of physical exertion that begins the moment you can stand and does not end until your body physically gives out. There's no separation between life and work. Work is life. It is the sun rising and the sun setting, and the ache in your muscles is the only clock you will ever know. If you are a man, your existence is tethered to the earth, not the poetic, bountiful earth of myth, but a hard, stingy, unforgiving patch of dirt that demands your blood and sweat in exchange for a meager harvest. Your day begins before dawn. You rise not to an alarm, but to the anxious crowing of the rooster and the gnawing in your own stomach. You don't eat a proper breakfast. You chew on a piece of yesterday's hard bread while you strap a wooden yoke to your ox, its ribs showing through its hide. The plow you guide is a simple, heavy piece of wood, perhaps tipped with iron if you're lucky. For hours you lean into it, your shoulder pressing into the rough wood until the skin is raw, your feet sinking into the clods of dry, rocky soil. It's not just pushing, it's a full-body battle against the land's resistance. Every stone that jolts the plow sends a shockwave of pain up your arms and into your spine. By midday, the sun is a hammer, and sweat is not just dripping from you. It is pouring, stinging your eyes, and soaking your tunic until it clings to you like a second sodden skin. There are no breaks. You eat your lunch, another piece of bread, a handful of olives, maybe a raw onion, while standing in the field, swatting away flies. Then it's back to the plow, or the scythe, or the hoe. The work is repetitive, mind-numbing, and dangerous. A slip of the scythe can slice your leg open to the bone. A clumsy move with an axe, while clearing scrubland, can cost you a finger or a foot. There are no emergency rooms, no tetanus shots. Every injury is a potential death sentence. You see older men in your village hobbling with limbs that never set right, their bodies a testament to a lifetime of such brutal accidents. You see their gnarled hands, their stooped backs, and you see your own future. If you are a woman, your labor is different, but no less relentless. Your domain is the household, but this is no sanctuary. It is a factory, and you are its engine. Your day also begins before dawn, with the grinding of grain. For hours, you kneel on the hard-packed earth floor, pushing a heavy stone back and forth across another, crushing barley into coarse flour. It is an act of incredible physical strain, engaging your arms, your shoulders, your core, your back. It is the sound that defines the morning in every poor household in Greece, the rhythmic, scraping groan of stone on stone. Then comes the water. The walk to the fountain is not a leisurely stroll. It is a grueling trek with heavy clay amphorae that, when full, weigh a significant portion of your own body weight. You balance them on your shoulders or your head, your neck muscles straining, your spine screaming in protest. You pray you don't trip on the uneven street and shatter a week's worth of back-breaking effort on the ground. And then the weaving. For hours every day you stand at the loom, a large, upright wooden frame. Your arms are constantly moving, passing the shuttle back and forth, your feet working the pedals. It is monotonous, exhausting work that strains your eyes in the dim light of your home. Your fingers are calloused and often pricked by the spindle. This is not a hobby. This is the production of your family's clothing, their blankets, their shrouds. It is a vital economic contribution, yet it is unpaid, unseen, and unending. You do all this while also cooking over an open fire that fills your home with smoke, while tending to sick children, while mending torn clothes, while trying to keep a semblance of order in a space that is constantly threatening to descend into chaos. There is no clocking out. Your work ends only when you collapse onto your mat at night, only to rise before the sun and begin the cycle all over again. This is not a life of quiet domesticity. It is a life of hard physical servitude, a sentence with no possibility of parole. You are not building a legacy. You are just trying to survive until tomorrow. Childbirth, in the world you know, is not a miracle. It is a brutal, terrifying, and often fatal crucible. It is a dance with Thanatos, the god of death, performed on a sweat-soaked mat on the floor of your tiny, smoke-filled home. The romanticized image of serene motherhood is a cruel joke. For a woman in ancient Greece, pregnancy and birth are the most dangerous journeys she will ever undertake, a gauntlet from which many do not return. From the moment you realize you are pregnant, a cold knot of fear settles in your gut. You've seen it happen before. You've heard the screams of your neighbors, the wailing of a husband who is suddenly a widower, the silence that follows when a mother and her child are both lost. 1 in 4 women in your community will not survive her childbearing years. It is the single greatest killer of young women, more deadly than any war or plague. You pray to Artemis and Hera, leaving what little offerings you can afford at their shrines, but you know the gods are fickle. Your fate rests in the hands of chance and the limited knowledge of the local midwife. The midwife is an older woman from your village, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, her hands calloused from a lifetime of labor and catching babies. She has no formal training, no medical texts, no sterile instruments. Her knowledge is a patchwork of inherited folklore, practical experience, and superstition. She arrives with a collection of herbs, some of which might ease the pain, some of which might be useless, and some of which might be actively harmful. She has no way of knowing if the baby is in the wrong position, no tools to perform a cesarean section, no understanding of germs or infection. Her primary tools are her hands, a sharp knife to cut the cord, and a series of chants meant to ward off evil spirits. When the labor begins, it is an agonizing, protracted ordeal. There is no epidural, no anesthesia, no pain relief, beyond a rag to bite down on, and the sips of watered-down wine the midwife might offer you. The pain is a primal, all-consuming force, a fire that tears through your body for hours, sometimes for days. You are surrounded by the women of your family, their faces etched with worry. They wipe your brow, they hold your hands, they murmur encouragements, but they are as helpless as you are. Your small home becomes a theater of suffering. If everything goes perfectly, if the baby is positioned correctly, and your body is strong enough, the ordeal ends with the messy, bloody, beautiful cry of a newborn. There's a moment of profound relief, a wave of exhaustion so complete it feels like a small death. But the danger is far from over. Postpartum hemorrhage, a sudden and uncontrollable bleeding, can snatch you from the jaws of survival in minutes. The midwife might try to pack you with herbs or rags, but she is fighting a battle she cannot win. And then there's the fever. Puerperal fever, a raging infection of the womb, is the silent killer that stalks new mothers. In a world without hygiene, where the midwife's hands are not washed and the cloths used are not clean, bacteria are introduced into your torn and traumatized body with terrifying ease. A few days after a successful birth, you might begin to shiver. The fever spikes, your abdomen swells with a pain worse than childbirth itself, and you slip into a delirium from which you will not wake. You become another statistic, another ghost haunting the periphery of a man's world. Your surviving children will be raised by another woman, your name a fading whisper. Your primary purpose, to produce a male heir for your husband's lineage, was fulfilled, but the cost was your own life. Every pregnancy is this roll of the dice, Every birth is a battle fought on the edge of the abyss. Your world is not a stable, predictable place. It is a stage for the violent and indifferent whims of nature. The idyllic Mediterranean landscape you see in paintings is a lie. The earth beneath your feet is not a gentle mother. It is a fickle, wrathful beast capable of erasing your entire existence in a matter of moments. You do not live in harmony with nature. You live in constant, low-grade fear of it. Earthquakes are a part of your reality. You don't understand plate tectonics. You understand the sudden, terrifying shudder of the ground beneath you. You believe it is Poseidon, the earth shaker, striking his trident in anger. One moment, you are inside your home, grinding grain. The next, the world is a roaring, chaotic blur. The mud brick walls around you crack and groan. The roof beams splinter and collapse. You are plunged into a choking cloud of dust and darkness, the screams of your family mingling with the terrifying roar of the earth itself. If you are lucky, you scramble out into the street, bruised and terrified, to find your home reduced to a pile of rubble. Your food stores are buried, your loom is smashed, everything you own is gone. If you are unlucky, you are trapped beneath the weight of your own life, your breath slowly crushed out of you in the dark. Entire cities could be leveled in this way, a generation of work and life wiped out in a minute of divine rage. Then there is the water. The same sea that provides fish and trade routes is also a source of terror. Sudden, violent storms can whip the Aegean into a frenzy, swallowing fishing boats whole and sending sailors to a cold, watery grave. But the greater threat comes from the sky. Rain, when it comes, is rarely gentle. It is a deluge, a torrential downpour that turns the dry, cracked earth into a sea of mud. The small river that runs near your village, a placid stream for most of the year, can swell into a raging brown torrent, overflowing its banks and sweeping away your crops, your livestock, and sometimes your children. Flash floods are a swift and merciless killer, a wall of water that gives no warning. But the opposite is just as deadly. Drought is a slow, creeping executioner. For months, the sky can remain a pitiless, empty blue. The sun beats down, cracking the earth into a mosaic of fissures. Your crops wither and turn to dust in the fields. The well runs dry. Your livestock, their ribs stark against their hides, grow weak and die. Hunger, a constant companion in your life, becomes a ravenous monster. You watch your children grow thin, their eyes large and haunted in their small faces. The community begins to fray. Neighbors who once shared with you now guard their meager supplies with suspicion. Scarcity turns goodwill into desperation. You pray to Demeter, the goddess of the harvest. You sacrifice the last of your chickens, but the sky remains silent. The famine that follows is not a dramatic event. It is a slow, quiet process of starvation, of watching your world shrink and die around you. And there is fire. In the dry heat of summer, your world is a tinderbox, a stray spark from a cooking fire. A lightning strike on a distant hill can ignite a blaze that sweeps through the olive groves and scrubland with terrifying speed. There are no fire brigades, no helicopters with water buckets. You fight it with wet sacks and prayers, a futile gesture against a wall of flame. The fire consumes your olive trees, the source of your oil, and a crucial part of your livelihood. Trees that took a generation to grow. It can sweep into your village itself, leaping from one thatch roof to the next, devouring your homes and everything in them. You do not control your environment. You are utterly at its mercy. The gods, the earth, the sky, they are not your partners. They are your capricious, all-powerful, and utterly indifferent landlords. You were not born. You were forged forged into a specific link in a great unyielding chain of social order, a chain that was hammered into place long before your grandfather's grandfather first drew breath. There is no concept of social mobility, no dream of reinvention, no inspiring tale of a peasant rising to become a philosopher. That is a fantasy, spun for a future you cannot imagine. Your reality is far simpler, far more brutal. You are what your father was. You will die what your father was, and your son will follow the same well-worn groove in the earth. The class you are born into is not a starting point, it is your cage. If you are born the son of a tenant farmer, your world is defined by a patch of dirt you will never own. You work the land of a wealthy aristocrat, a man you might see only once a year, riding by on a fine horse, his face a mask of casual indifference. He is a creature from another universe. He lives in a stone villa with mosaic floors and painted walls, while you live in a mud brick hovel with a dirt floor. He eats roasted meat and drinks undiluted wine from silver cups, while you chew on gritty barley bread and hope your meager olive harvest will be enough to pay your debt to him. Because you are always in debt, the rent is a crushing percentage of your yield, a figure set not by fairness but by his whim. One bad harvest, one season of drought or flood is enough to push you over the edge. You are not just his tenant, you are his property in all but name. He can raise your rent, evict you, or sell the land out from under you without a second thought. You have no recourse, no court to appeal to that would ever favor your word against his. Your life is a constant, grinding effort to produce enough to feed your family and satisfy a master you barely know, a master whose wealth is built directly upon the foundation of your perpetual poverty. If you were born an artisan, a potter, or a blacksmith, your cage is the city workshop. Your world is smaller, defined by the suffocating heat of the kiln or the rhythmic clang of the hammer on the anvil. You have a skill, yes, but this skill does not bring you freedom. It brings you repetition. You make the same pot, the same horseshoe, the same simple blade, day after day, year after year. Your hands are your capital, but they are also your prison. An injury, a burn, a slip of the chisel can mean destitution. You are not an artist. You are a producer, a cog in the city's economic machine. You sell your wares in the agora, haggling for a few extra obols, with customers who see your life's work as a mere commodity. You live in a cramped, noisy tenement, your tiny workshop occupying the front room, the stench of clay or coal smoke clinging to everything you own. You are a step above the farmer, perhaps, but your ceiling is just as low, just as solid. You will never own a villa. You will never sit in the front rows of the theater. You will never have a voice in the assembly that truly matters. This rigid hierarchy is not just economic. It is woven into the very fabric of your soul. It is reinforced by religion, by philosophy, by the simple, unspoken reality of your daily life. The aristocrats, you are told, are descended from heroes, from the gods themselves. Their inherent superiority is a fact of nature, as obvious as the sun in the sky. To question it is not just rebellion, it is insanity. You look at your calloused hands, you feel the ache in your back, and you accept your lot. This is the world as it has always been, as it will always be. The chain is unbreakable. You are born into your link. You live your life within its confines, and you die there, making way for the next generation to take your place in the same unyielding metal. The dream of a better life isn't a dream you can't achieve. It's a dream you don't even know how to have. If you are a woman, your cage is not made of mud bricks or city stone. It is made of silence, invisibility, and expectation. It is a gilded prison, perhaps. If your family is wealthy, but a prison nonetheless, with walls more formidable than any fortress, because they are built inside your own mind. You are not a citizen. You are not an individual. You are a vessel for carrying your father's bloodline to your husband's house, and a vessel for producing the male heirs that will continue his. This is your purpose. It is your entire state-sanctioned reason for being. Your life is divided into two phases, both defined by male ownership. First, you are your father's property. You are raised in the gynaeceum, the women's quarters, a secluded section of the house where the windows are small and high, designed to let in a little light but keep the world's gaze out. This is your universe. You do not go to the agora. You do not listen to the philosophers debate. You do not watch the athletes train at the gymnasium. To be seen in public too often is to invite suspicion, to have your reputation, which is your family's honor, whispered away. Your education consists not of rhetoric or geometry, but of weaving, household management, and the art of being pleasingly silent. You learn to spin wool, to manage slaves, to be deferential. You are being groomed for your one great transaction, marriage. You do not choose your husband. You might never even meet him until your wedding day. The decision is made by your father, a cold, practical negotiation of dowries and alliances. At the age of 14 or 15, you are handed over to a man who is often twice your age, a stranger with whom you are expected to share a bed and produce children. Love is not part of the equation. Affection might grow, perhaps, but duty is the foundation. On your wedding night, you are ritually passed from the authority of your father to the authority of your husband. You have simply exchanged one master for another. Now you are the mistress of a new household, but this title is a deception. You are a manager, not a ruler. You oversee the slaves. You direct the cooking and cleaning. You ensure the smooth functioning of the domestic sphere, but you have no real power. You cannot own property outright. You cannot conduct business. You cannot leave the house without your husband's permission and a male escort. Your husband's friends will come to the house for symposia, drinking parties where they recline on couches, debating politics and philosophy, their laughter echoing through the halls. You will not join them. You and the other women of the household will eat separately, hidden away, your presence acknowledged only when it is time to serve. You are the chief executive of a company you will never own, the silent, invisible engine that allows the men's world of public life to function. Your body is not your own. Its primary value lies in its womb. Your worth to your husband and to the state is measured by your ability to produce a son. A daughter is an expense, another dowry to be paid. A son is a future citizen, a soldier, an heir. Each pregnancy is a gamble, not just with your life, but with your status. If you are barren, you can be set aside, repudiated in shame. Your failure is absolute. You have failed at your one essential task. Even your name is subsumed. You are not known by your own name, but as the wife of so-and-so or the mother of so-and-so. You are defined entirely by your relationship to the men in your life. The psychological toll of this existence is immense. It is a life lived in the shadows, a constant performance of modesty and obedience. You learn to speak quietly, to walk softly, to erase your own desires. The cage is comfortable, perhaps, with fine clothes and enough to eat if your husband is wealthy, but its bars are made of the crushing weight of a society that sees you not for who you are, but for what you can produce. You are told that law is the foundation of civilization, the great gift of the Greeks that separates man from beast. But from where you stand, on the bottom rung of the social ladder, the law is not a shield, it is a weapon. It is a complex and elegant instrument designed by the wealthy to protect the wealthy, a tool wielded with casual cruelty to maintain the rigid order of your world. Justice is not blind. She peeks from under her blindfold, and her scales are permanently tipped in favor of the man who can afford to bribe the witnesses and hire the best orator. Your first encounter with the law is likely through debt. In a world of precarious harvests and unpredictable fortunes, debt is a constant, looming shadow. You borrow a few drachmas from a wealthy landowner to buy seed after a bad year, agreeing to terms you barely understand. The interest is exorbitant, designed to be impossible to repay. The contract is not written to be fair. It is written to be a trap. When you inevitably fail to meet a payment, the law in all its majesty descends upon you. You don't have a lawyer. You represent yourself in court, a stammering, uneducated farmer standing before an archon who shares the same social class and dinner table as your creditor. Your plea for mercy is met with a cold recitation of the contract's terms. The verdict is swift and merciless. The consequences are catastrophic. First, they take your land, the small plot your family has worked for generations. Then, they take your tools, your ox, your very means of survival. But the debt is still not paid, so they come for you. Under the laws of debt bondage, your creditor can claim your body as payment. You are now his slave. You are forced to work his fields, not as a tenant, but as chattel, for no pay until the debt is considered settled, which is to say, forever. Or worse, he can take your children, your daughter, sold to become a household slave in a strange city, your son sent to labor in the horrific silver mines of Larion, a death sentence from which no one returns. This is not an aberration. It is the system working exactly as intended. It is a legal mechanism for transferring the last vestiges of wealth and autonomy from the poor to the rich. If you are accused of a crime, your situation is no better. The Athenian jury system, hailed as a cornerstone of democracy, is for you a terrifying mob. Hundreds of your fellow citizens, swayed not by evidence, but by the rhetorical skill of the accuser, will decide your fate. There are no professional judges, no rules of evidence. Slander, rumor, and appeals to emotion are the primary tools of the courtroom. If a powerful man accuses you of theft, his word against yours is an insurmountable obstacle. He can speak with confidence and eloquence, while you, uneducated and terrified, can barely string a sentence together. The jury sees his fine cloak and your ragged tunic, and they make their decision before you have even finished speaking. The punishments are brutal. Fines that would bankrupt you, public flogging that leaves you scarred and shamed, or exile, cast out from the only community you have ever known. The law is a language, and you do not speak it. It is a game, and you do not know the rules. It is a wall, designed not to protect you, but to keep you in your place. You see the gleaming temples of justice in the agora, and you understand that they were not built for you. They were built to consecrate a power structure that grinds you down, a system that uses the noble language of justice to sanctify the cruel realities of class and power. You learn to fear the law, to avoid it, to make yourself as invisible as possible to its cold, impartial gaze. For you, the greatest justice is to be left alone, a small mercy the system is rarely willing to grant. You do not have a name. You have a designation: Thracian, Scythian, the woman from the kitchen, the boy who carries the water. The name your mother gave you was stripped away at the slave market, along with your clothes, your dignity, and your past. It was the first act of your unmaking. You are not a person. You are an object, a piece of animate property, a tool that breathes. The philosopher Aristotle, in his infinite wisdom, will declare that you are a slave by nature, as suited to servitude as an ox is to the plow. Your existence is a living testament to this chilling philosophy, a daily erasure of your own humanity. Your life is a landscape of profound invisibility. You move through your master's home like a ghost, your presence required, but your personhood ignored. You light the lamps, you serve the wine, you clean up the vomit from last night's symposium, and you do it all in a state of practiced silence. You learn to make your footsteps soft, your gaze downcast. To meet your master's eye is an act of insolence. To speak unless spoken to is a transgression that will be met with the back of his hand or the sting of a leather strap. Your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, they are a secret, inner world you guard ferociously because it is the only thing you truly own. The work is not merely labor. It is a catalog of human degradation. If you are a household slave, your days are an endless cycle of menial tasks. You grind the grain, you carry the water, you knead the dough, you empty the chamber pots. You are at the beck and call of every member of the family, from the master who can command your body for any purpose, to the petulant child who can strike you without consequence. There is no privacy. You sleep on a mat in the kitchen or a corner of the hallway, your rest punctuated by the drunken stumbling of the master returning late at night, or the early morning clamor of the household waking. You are the first to rise and the last to sleep. Your exhaustion is a constant humming presence, a background noise to your life. If you are less fortunate, you are sent to the mines. The silver mines of Lorien are not a workplace. They are a subterranean hell. You are lowered into the suffocating darkness, a small, sputtering oil lamp, your only connection to the world of light. You spend 10, 12, 16 hours a day crawling through tunnels so narrow you cannot stand, chipping away at the rock face with a small pick. The air is thick with toxic dust that coats your lungs, a slow-acting poison that guarantees you will be coughing up blood within a year. The rock falls are frequent and deadly, burying men alive in an instant. There is no escape. Armed guards patrol the surface, their whips a constant reminder of your status. You will work in this darkness until your body breaks, until you are too weak to lift the pick, and then you will be left to die, your corpse tossed into a common pit, your short, brutal life utterly forgotten. You are not a miner. You are a disposable component, a human tool used up and discarded in the relentless pursuit of wealth and empire. The violence is not occasional. It is the grammar of your existence. It is not just the whip or the fist. It is the casual, daily assertion of absolute power. It is the threat that hangs in the air, the knowledge that your body is not your own. You can be beaten for a spilled cup of wine, for a moment of perceived laziness, or for no reason at all. You can be branded, your skin seared with the mark of your owner, a permanent declaration that you are livestock. You can be sold, torn away from the only people you know, perhaps a fellow slave with whom you have formed a fragile bond, a secret family, and shipped to a strange land, your heart ripped out for the sake of a few silver coins, and you can be killed. Your master can kill you with less legal consequence than he would face for killing his neighbor's dog. Your life has no intrinsic value. It is measured only by its utility to him. This is the foundation upon which the glory of Greece is built. The Parthenon, with its sublime proportions, was built with silver gouged from the earth by the dying hands of slaves. The philosophical debates about justice and virtue were conducted by men whose leisure was purchased with the sweat, blood, and silent suffering of people they considered less than human. You are the invisible scaffolding that holds up the entire glittering edifice of their civilization. You hear their talk of freedom, of democracy, of the dignity of man, and you know it to be the most profound and cruel of lies. Your existence is the silent, screaming refutation of everything they claim to hold dear. You are a citizen, a free man. You have survived infancy. You have endured the back-breaking labor of your youth, and now you have been called to perform your highest duty, war. Not as a choice, not as a profession, but as a compulsory, terrifying, and often terminal obligation. Peace, in your world, is not the natural state of affairs. It is a brief, nervous pause between conflicts. Your city-state is perpetually at war with its neighbors, with the Persians, with itself. Conflict is the engine of your society, and you are its fuel. The summons comes without warning. A herald stands in the agora, his voice ringing out, calling your name, your father's name, your tribe. You are to report for duty. There is no deferment for a harvest that needs to be brought in, no exemption for a sick wife or a newborn child. To refuse is an act of treason, punishable by the loss of your citizenship, your property, and your honor. So you go. You take down the heavy bronze shield from the wall, the one your father carried before you. You polish your helmet and your greaves. You sharpen the point of your spear. This equipment, your only defense against the chaos of battle, was not issued to you. You, or your family, had to buy it, at a cost that represents years of savings. If you are poor, your armor is made of cheap leather and reinforced linen, a pathetic ward against a bronze-tipped spear. You are keenly aware that the quality of your armor directly correlates to your chances of survival. You march for days in a long column of sweating, anxious men. You are not a professional soldier. You are a farmer, a potter, a stonemason. The man marching next to you makes fishnets for a living. The man behind you is a poet. You have been trained, yes, in the basic formations of the phalanx, but this training does not prepare you for the reality of what is to come. It does not prepare you for the thirst, the gnawing hunger, the terror that coils in your stomach at night as you lie on the hard ground, listening to the alien sounds of a hostile country. Then comes the battle. You stand in the phalanx, shoulder to shoulder with the men from your village. Your shield is locked with your neighbors, creating a wall of wood and bronze. The man in front of you obscures your view. You see only the back of his helmet and the tense muscles of his neck. You can smell his fear, a sour, metallic scent that mingles with your own. The air is thick with tension. You hear the enemy war cries, a guttural roar that seems to shake the ground. You hear the blare of trumpets, the commands of your officers, and then you are moving. A slow, inexorable advance, a walking wall of death. The impact is a physical shock, a brutal collision of flesh and metal. The world dissolves into a chaotic symphony of screams, the clash of bronze on bronze, the wet, sickening thud of a spear finding its home in a man's chest. A man in front of you goes down, a spear point protruding from his throat, his eyes wide with a final, shocking surprise. You step over his body to close the gap, your sandals slipping in his blood. The man next to you grunts, his shield arm slumping as an arrow finds the gap in his armor. You are no longer an individual. You are a component of a machine whose purpose is to kill. You thrust your spear forward, again and again, into the press of enemy bodies, not with hatred, but with a desperate animal instinct to survive. You do not see faces, you see targets. If you survive the initial clash, the real horror begins. The phalanx breaks, and the battle dissolves into a series of frantic, personal duels. A man with wild eyes and a bloody axe lunges at you. You parry with your shield, the force of the blow jarring your arm to the shoulder. You thrust with your short sword, feeling a horrible, soft resistance as it sinks into his gut. He looks at you, not with hate, but with a kind of pleading confusion. Before he collapses, you do not have time to feel remorse, because another man is already upon you. This is the reality of war. It is not glorious. It is clumsy, terrifying, and intimate. It is the business of making corpses, one exhausted, trembling thrust at a time. If you are wounded, your chances are slim. A deep cut from a sword will likely fester. An arrow in the gut is a slow, agonizing death sentence. The field medics are your fellow soldiers, with no knowledge beyond how to bind a wound with a strip of linen. You might be carried back to camp, where you lie in a tent, shivering with fever, your wound turning black with gangrene, until you finally die, days after the battle has been won. And if you survive, truly survive, and return home, you are not the same man who left. You carry the ghosts of the men you killed, the screams of the dying echoing in your memory. The city will praise your courage. They will carve your name on a monument if you die, but they will not understand the piece of your soul you left behind on that bloody field. Your service is not a noble sacrifice. It is a tax paid in blood and terror for the privilege of belonging to a city that sees you as little more than a spear point in its endless, brutal ambitions. You are a member of a community, a citizen of a polis. This, you are told, is your strength. You are not a lone individual, but part of a greater whole, a fellowship of men, bound by common laws, common gods, and a common purpose. But this ideal of community, like the ideal of justice, is a beautiful mask hiding a far more suffocating reality. Your community is not a source of comfort. It is a relentless, suffocating force of social control. It is a web of eyes, ears, and whispered judgments from which there is no escape. Privacy is a concept that does not exist. Your home, with its thin walls and open courtyard, is not a sanctuary. Your neighbors hear every argument you have with your wife, the cries of your newborn child, your groans of pain when your back seizes up. They see who comes and goes from your door. They know when you have slaughtered a goat for a sacrifice, and they can smell what you are cooking for dinner. Your life is an open book, and everyone in your village is a critic. You live under the tyranny of the collective gaze. Reputation is everything. It is a currency more valuable than silver, and far more fragile. A single misstep, a perceived slight against a powerful neighbor, a rumor whispered in the agora, can destroy you. Did you fail to show proper deference to an elder? Did your wife laugh too loudly at the fountain? Did you boast too much after a good harvest? These are not minor social faux pas. They are cracks in the social armor, vulnerabilities that your rivals and enemies will exploit without mercy. The community does not forgive. It remembers. Grudges are nursed for generations, passed down from father to son like a family heirloom. A dispute over a boundary line between fields can escalate into a decades-long feud, fought not with swords, but with slander, sabotage, and social ostracism. The pressure to conform is immense. You are expected to participate in the public rituals, to contribute to the public festivals, to hold the same opinions as the majority. To be different is to be dangerous. If you question the gods, if you express an unpopular political view, if you simply prefer solitude to the boisterous company of the symposium, you are marked as an outsider. The whispers begin. He is impious. He is arrogant. He thinks he is better than us. The community, which once pretended to embrace you, now begins to slowly, methodically push you out. You are no longer invited to your neighbors' homes. Men turn their backs on you in the agora. Your isolation becomes a public spectacle, a warning to others not to stray from the path. This social pressure is most acutely felt in the institution of ostracism. Once a year, the citizens of Athens gather and are given a chance to vote into exile any man they deem a threat to the state. This is not a trial. There is no charge, no evidence, no defense. It is a popularity contest in reverse. A man can be exiled for being too successful, too charismatic, too intelligent. Your neighbor might vote against you simply because he is envious of your fine olive grove. Another might vote against you because you defeated his cousin in a wrestling match 20 years ago. It is the institutionalization of petty jealousy and public resentment. Imagine living with the knowledge that once a year, your entire community has a formal opportunity to ruin your life based on nothing more than a whim. You learn to perform a delicate, exhausting dance. You must be successful, but not too successful. Pious, but not ostentatiously so. Sociable, but not too charismatic. You constantly monitor your own words, your own actions, sanding down any rough edges of your personality that might attract unwanted attention. You laugh at the right jokes. You praise the right people. You offer the right sacrifices. Your public life is a carefully constructed performance, a mask of conformity you wear to protect yourself from the very people you call your neighbors. This is the great lie of the Greek polis. It is not a community of equals united in freedom. It is a collection of anxious individuals, each one watching the other, all bound together, not by fellowship, but by a shared, unspoken fear of the mob. The gods are not your shepherds. They are not your loving fathers or your benevolent protectors. They are a cosmic mafia, a pantheon of divine gangsters running a protection racket on a planetary scale. They are vain, cruel, petty, and pathologically insecure. They do not demand your love. They demand your fear, and you give it to them in copious, shivering amounts, because you know that their boredom is your apocalypse, and their passing anger is your annihilation. Your relationship with the divine is not one of faith. It is one of constant, nerve-shredding anxiety. You do not wake up with a prayer of gratitude on your lips. You wake up with a checklist of potential offenses running through your mind. Did you remember to pour out the first portion of your wine for Hestia last night? Was the small barley cake you left on the household altar sufficient to appease the ancestral spirits? Did you, in a dream, say something disrespectful about Zeus's philandering? Because in this world, a thought crime is as real as a physical one, and the gods are always listening. They are the ultimate surveillance state, and their punishments are wildly, terrifyingly disproportionate to the crime. Forget to sacrifice a goat to Artemis before a hunt. Your son will fall and break his leg, the bone shattering in a way that will leave him a cripple for life. Fail to offer a prayer to Poseidon before a short sea voyage. A sudden freak storm will capsize your boat, sending you to a watery grave, your lungs filling with salt water as you sink into the indifferent depths. Offend Hera, the queen of jealousy. Your wife will become barren, or your next child will be born with a horrific deformity. The gods are cosmic bullies, pulling the wings off flies for sport, and you, your family, your entire city, you are the flies. This is not hyperbole. This is your theology. You are raised on stories of divine cruelty. You know of Arachne, the master weaver, who was turned into a spider for boasting she was better than Athena. You know of Marsyas, the satyr, who was flayed alive for daring to challenge Apollo to a music contest. You know of Actaeon, the hunter who was turned into a stag and torn apart by his own hounds for accidentally glimpsing Artemis bathing. These are not just fables. They are cautionary tales, divine propaganda designed to keep you in a state of perpetual submission. They teach you one essential lesson. You are nothing. Your talents, your ambitions, your very life are conditional gifts from beings who can and will snatch them away for the slightest perceived insult. Look at the sky during a thunderstorm. You don't see a meteorological phenomenon. You see Zeus hurling thunderbolts in a fit of pique. You see his rage made manifest, a terrifying display of power that can splinter an ancient olive tree or strike a man dead in an instant. You don't cower because you are ignorant of science. You cower because you are well versed in the character of your gods. You know that this storm might not be random. It might be directed. It might be meant for your neighbor who was caught cheating at dice. Or terrifyingly, it might be meant for you. So you live your life walking on eggshells around an invisible, omnipotent, and emotionally unstable family. Your world is booby-trapped with divine tripwires. Every sacred grove, every stream, every oddly shaped rock could be home to a nymph or a minor deity you might offend by trespassing or failing to show proper respect. You do not live in a world enchanted by gods. You live in a world infested with them. They are not a source of spiritual comfort. They are a source of unending, existential dread, a divine tyranny that governs every aspect of your life, from the planting of your fields to the moment of your death. They are not your saviors. They are your wardens, and the entire world is their prison. Given this pantheon of celestial sociopaths, your life becomes a frantic, unending series of rituals designed to appease them. Religion for you is not about spiritual enlightenment or moral guidance. It is about damage control. It is a complex, exhausting, and expensive system of bribes, flattery, and carefully prescribed actions intended to keep the divine bullies from noticing you. Your life is governed by a calendar of sacred obligations, a relentless schedule of sacrifices and ceremonies that drain your resources and your time. It begins at home. Your house is not just a shelter. It is a small temple. A portion of every meal must be offered to the gods. A libation of wine must be poured onto the earth before you drink. These are not optional gestures of piety. They are mandatory insurance payments. To forget is to invite misfortune, to signal to the cosmos that you are negligent, and negligence is a crime the gods punish with glee. Then there are the public festivals. Every month it seems there is another god demanding their due. The Panathenaea for Athena, the Dionysia for Dionysus, the Thesmophoria for Demeter. These are not joyous community celebrations. They are state-mandated displays of terrified devotion. You are expected to participate, to contribute what little you can afford for the public sacrifices, to close your workshop and lose a day's wages to march in a procession. And the sacrifices. You watch as the priests, their robes stained with old blood, slit the throat of a prize bull, its terrified bellows echoing through the sanctuary. You see the steam rise from its entrails as the priests read the future in the quivering organs. The smell of burning fat and roasting meat fills the air, a scent meant to waver up to Olympus and placate the hungry nostrils of the gods. You might get a small portion of the less desirable meat, a rare treat, but you know the prime cuts, the fat, the thigh bones. They belong to the gods, burned on the altar for their pleasure. You are paying tribute in blood and treasure to your divine overlords. And what if you have a personal crisis? A sick child, a failing crop, a business venture on the verge of collapse. You cannot simply pray for help. You must make a vow. Heal my son, Apollo, and I will sacrifice my finest goat to you. This is not a request. It is a contract. And if your son recovers, you must pay up To break a vow to a god is one of the most dangerous things a mortal can do. The stories are legion of men who tried to cheat the gods and were met with utter ruin. So you lead your finest goat, the one that could have fed your family for a week, to the temple and hand it over to the priests. You watch it die, your heart heavy with the economic cost of this divine intervention. Your relief is mingled with the bitter taste of your own powerlessness. You did not solve your problem. You paid a divine entity to solve it for you. The rituals extend to every corner of your life. Before you plant your seeds, you must perform a specific rite to appease Demeter. Before you go to war, you must sacrifice to Ares and Athena. Before you get married, you must make offerings to Hera. Each action is preceded by a ritual calculation. Which god governs this domain? What kind of offering do they prefer? What is the correct prayer to recite? To get it wrong is to court disaster. Using the wrong invocation, offering a black goat when a white one was required, performing the ritual on the wrong day of the month. These are not minor errors. They are cosmic insults. This is not a system that provides comfort. It provides anxiety. It is a spiritual bureaucracy of crushing complexity and terrifying consequences. You are not connecting with a higher power. You are navigating a minefield. The weight of these obligations is immense, a constant drain on your meager resources, and a source of perpetual worry. You are not acting out of love for your gods. You are acting out of a deep, abiding, and entirely rational fear. Your entire religious life is a desperate attempt to remain beneath the notice of the capricious, violent beings who rule your universe. The greatest blessing you can hope for is to be ignored. In a world ruled by unpredictable gods and brute force, you do not rely on logic or reason to navigate your daily life. You rely on superstition. It is your compass, your map, and your shield. It is a dense, tangled ecosystem of omens, curses, charms, and portents that governs your every move, a secret language of fear that everyone speaks fluently. Your world is not made of atoms and molecules. It is made of signs and symbols, a constant stream of messages from an unseen and usually malevolent reality. Your day is a series of small, anxious rituals designed to ward off bad luck. You are careful to always step over a threshold with your right foot first. To hear a sneeze on your left as you are leaving the house is a terrible omen, a clear sign from the gods that you should abandon your plans for the day and return home immediately. An owl hooting during the daytime is a harbinger of death. The calling of a crow, the flight path of an eagle, the sudden appearance of a snake on the road. These are not random natural events. They are communications, warnings, threats. You learn to read the world like a nervous augur, constantly scanning for evidence of impending doom. The fear of the evil eye, or Biscania, is a palpable, daily terror. You believe that envy is not just an emotion. It is a destructive force that can be projected from another person's eyes, a toxic dart of malice that can cause sickness, misfortune, or even death. If someone praises your child's beauty too effusively, a cold dread seizes you. They might have inadvertently cursed him. You quickly spit 3 times to ward off the evil, a small, reflexive act of spiritual defense. This is why people hang charms, phallic symbols, images of gorgon heads above their doorways and around their necks. They are not decorations. They are spiritual lightning rods, designed to attract and deflect the constant barrage of invisible malevolence that flows through the world. Curses are not the stuff of fantasy. They are a practical and widely used technology of revenge. If a neighbor has wronged you, you don't take him to court, where you know you will lose. You go to a specialist, a kind of dark magician, who will inscribe your curse on a thin sheet of lead. You write your enemy's name. You detail the specific misfortune you wish upon him. May his tongue falter when he speaks against me. May his limbs grow weak. May his business fail. And you invoke the dark gods of the underworld, Hecate or Persephone, to carry out your sentence. Then you fold the lead tablet, pierce it with a nail to symbolically fix your enemy, and deposit it in a place you believe is close to the underworld, a well, a grave, a sanctuary of a chthonic deity. Thousands of these cursed tablets have been found by archaeologists. They are a testament to a society simmering with a level of hatred and paranoia that could only be expressed through magical means. And you live with the terrifying knowledge that at any given moment, someone, a business rival, a jilted lover, an envious neighbor, might be burying a piece of lead with your name on it, actively willing your destruction into being. Your belief in this unseen world dictates your every decision. You would not begin construction on a new workshop without consulting a diviner to determine the most auspicious day. You would not get married in an unlucky month. You interpret your dreams with deadly seriousness, believing them to be messages from the gods or visions of the future. A dream of falling teeth means the death of a relative. A dream of flying might be a good omen, or a sign of hubris that will soon be punished. Nothing is what it seems. Everything has a second, hidden meaning. This creates a state of constant psychological tension. You are forever second-guessing your own actions, haunted by the possibility that a simple, everyday choice might have catastrophic, unseen consequences. This is the real operating system of the ancient Greek mind. Philosophy and logic are a luxury product, an intellectual game for a tiny, leisured elite. For you, the common person, life is not governed by the syllogisms of Aristotle. It is governed by the hoot of an owl, the direction of a sneeze, and the deep, unshakable conviction that your neighbor's envy can kill your child. You are not an irrational fool. You are a pragmatist, using the only tools you have to make sense of a world that is chaotic, dangerous, and fundamentally hostile. Superstition is not a weakness. In this world, it is your only navigation system. You are not a student. You are a stonemason. Your hands are rough. Your back aches, and the fine white dust of marble has settled into the lines of your face, making you look older than your 30 years. You are walking home through the agora after a 10-hour day of chipping away at a column for a new temple, your stomach a hollow pit of hunger, your mind focused on the small piece of dried fish and the barley cake that awaits you. And then you see him, Socrates. He's standing there, barefoot and shabby as always, a small crowd of wealthy, perfumed young men hanging on his every word, and his gaze, that annoyingly placid, knowing gaze, falls on you. This is not an opportunity for enlightenment. This is a public menace. Philosophy, for the men who practice it, is a noble pursuit, a quest for truth, a joyful exercise of the mind. For you, it is a form of public harassment, an elaborate and cruel game played at your expense. Socrates does not see a tired man trying to get home to his family. He sees a specimen, a living, breathing example of the unexamined life he so famously decries. He beckons you over, a gentle smile on his face that does not reach his eyes. His young acolytes, the sons of aristocrats who have never done a day of real labor in their lives, smirk. The show is about to begin. Friend, Socrates begins, his voice deceptively mild. You seem an honest man. Tell me, do you believe you are a just man? You are tired. You are hungry. You have no idea what he's talking about, but to refuse to answer would be a public insult. So you nod cautiously. Yes, you mutter. I try to be. And with that, the trap is sprung. For the next hour, you are not a person. You are a rhetorical whetstone upon which he sharpens his intellect. He begins a relentless interrogation, a barrage of questions designed not to find an answer, but to dismantle yours. What is justice? Is it paying your debts? But what if you owe a weapon to a madman? Is it just to return it? Is justice helping your friends and harming your enemies? But what if your friends are bad men and your enemies are good? Every simple, common sense answer you provide is twisted, turned inside out, and shown to be a contradiction. You feel your face flush with a hot mixture of shame and anger. The crowd of young men is openly laughing now, enjoying the spectacle of a simple man being intellectually dismembered by the master. You did not ask for this. You were minding your own business, but in Athens, the agora is a theater, and the philosophers are the star performers, their cruelty cloaked in the noble language of inquiry. Plato might later write down this encounter, transforming your fumbling, exhausted replies into a key part of a dialogue on the nature of virtue, forever immortalizing your humiliation as a footnote in his quest for eternal truths. You become a caricature, the stonemason, a stand-in for the ignorant masses who live in the shadows of the cave. He will not mention your aching back, the calluses on your hands, or the hungry children waiting for you at home. He will only mention your inability to define justice. This is the reality of philosophy from the ground up. It is not an invitation to wisdom. It is an assertion of class superiority. It is a leisure activity, a sport for men who have the time and energy to debate abstract concepts, because their food is cooked by slaves and their wealth is generated by the labor of men like you. The grand ideas of Plato's Republic, the philosopher kings, the ideal state, are utterly alien to your world. Your republic is the daily struggle to feed your family. Your ideal state is a day without a tax collector at your door. The philosopher's quest for the good life feels like a profound insult, a mockery of your actual life, which is defined not by choice and contemplation, but by necessity and exhaustion. So you finally extricate yourself from Socrates' web, your head spinning, your dignity in tatters. You walk away to the sound of the young aristocrats' laughter. You do not feel enlightened. You feel used. You feel a deep, burning resentment for these men who play with words while you build the world with your hands. Philosophy is not a light in the darkness. For the 99% of people like you, it is just another form of public nuisance, another way for the powerful to remind you of your own insignificance. Your entire life, you are bombarded with the language of virtue, arie. The word echoes from the mouths of orators, from the scripts of playwrights, from the lessons of the elite. It means excellence, virtue, the fulfillment of one's highest potential. It is presented as the ultimate goal of a Greek man's life, a shining peak to be summited. But for you, this concept is not an inspiration. It is an impossible, crushing weight. It is a standard you can never hope to meet, a constant reminder of your own perceived inadequacy. It is a spiritual yoke, heavier than the wooden one you place on your ox. The ideal of arete is inextricably linked to a life of leisure and public action. To achieve it, a man must have the time to train his body at the gymnasium, to develop his mind through philosophical debate, to serve the state in the assembly and in war. He must be a warrior, an athlete, a statesman, an orator. This is not a description of a human being. It is a description of an aristocrat. It is a life built upon the foundation of inherited wealth and slave labor. You, a farmer or an artisan, are automatically disqualified from this noble pursuit. Your life is one of endless labor. You do not have time to go to the gymnasium, Your muscles are developed by hauling stones, not by throwing a discus. You do not have time to debate the nature of the good. Your mind is occupied with calculating whether your grain supply will last through the winter. You cannot dedicate your life to serving the state. You must dedicate it to serving your own empty stomach. The very conditions of your existence make the attainment of arete an impossibility. And yet, the ideal is held up as universal. The orators do not say, arete is for the rich. They say, arete is the duty of every Greek man. This is the cruel genius of the system. It creates an impossibly high standard and then shames you for failing to meet it. It is a form of psychological control, a way to make you internalize your own social inferiority. You are not just poor, you are deficient. Your failure to achieve excellence is a moral failing, a stain on your character. This plays out in every aspect of your life. You watch the Olympic athletes, their bodies sculpted and oiled, competing for a wreath of olive leaves and immortal glory. You are a spectator to a world of physical perfection you can never join. Your body is a tool, scarred and broken by labor, not a temple of beauty and strength. You listen to a great political leader, like Pericles, deliver a funeral oration, his words soaring, his rhetoric weaving a tapestry of civic glory. You feel a flicker of pride, perhaps, but it is overshadowed by the gnawing awareness that he is not talking about you. He is talking about the men who died as hoplites, the heavily armed citizens who could afford the bronze armor of a true warrior. If you died in the Navy as a rower, a lower class position, your death is a footnote, less glorious, less virtuous. The philosophers, in their serene groves, discuss the virtues: courage, temperance, justice, wisdom. You are told that courage is facing death in battle for your city. But what of the quiet, daily courage it takes to face a failing crop, to watch your child sicken with a fever you cannot cure, to rise every day before dawn and face a life of relentless, painful labor? This courage is unsung, unpraised, invisible. It does not fit the heroic mold. It is the wrong kind of courage. So you live in the shadow of an ideal you can never reach. It is a source of constant, low-grade shame. You feel that your life, with its focus on the mundane realities of survival, is somehow less meaningful, less Greek than the lives of the men who rule you. The concept of arete is not a ladder you can climb. It is a wall built to keep you in your place, to convince you that your position at the bottom of the social order is not an accident of birth, but a reflection of your own inner worth. It is the most elegant and most brutal tool of social control they possess, a cage for the soul, forged from the beautiful, unattainable language of virtue. Death is not a release. It is a final, terrifying descent into a world of gray, featureless mediocrity. Your poets and philosophers do not speak of a heavenly paradise or a fiery hell of punishment. They speak of Hades, a place devoid of color, of passion, of life. It is the kingdom of the forgotten, a dusty, subterranean realm where the shades of the dead shuffle aimlessly, whispering like dry leaves in the wind. This is the horror that awaits you, not torment, but an eternity of utter, soul-crushing boredom. Your fear of death is not just a fear of the end of life. It is a fear of the eternity that follows. You have been raised on the stories. You know of Achilles, the greatest of all warriors, who told Odysseus in the underworld that he would rather be the lowliest servant to a poor farmer on earth than be king over all the dead. This is your eschatology. The best case scenario after death is to be a miserable, weeping shadow forever longing for the warmth of the sun, the taste of wine, the feeling of solid ground beneath your feet. This is why your funeral rites are so desperately important. They are not a celebration of your life. They are a frantic series of logistical preparations for a terrifying journey. Your family must wash your body, anoint it with oil, and dress it in a clean tunic. They must place a coin in your mouth, not as a symbol, but as a literal fare for Charon, the grim ferryman who rows the dead across the river Styx. Without this coin, your soul will be trapped on the wrong bank for 100 years, a lost and wailing ghost, unable to find its final resting place. The thought of this is a unique kind of terror. To be denied even the grim peace of Hades is the ultimate misfortune. Your family must mourn you loudly, publicly, and performatively. The women will tear at their clothes, scratch their cheeks until they bleed, and chant dirges that recount your life's deeds. Humble though they may be, this is not just an expression of grief, it is a vital service. The memory of the living is the only thing that gives a shade in Hades any substance. To be forgotten on earth is to fade into nothingness in the underworld. You live with the constant, gnawing anxiety that your death might be a bad death. To die at sea and have your body lost to the waves is a catastrophe, because an unburied body means a restless, angry spirit, doomed to haunt the world of the living, to fall in a distant battle, and be left on the field for the dogs and vultures to pick apart, is a fate too terrible to contemplate. This is why armies would risk everything to recover the bodies of their fallen comrades. It was not about sentiment, it was about spiritual necessity. And what awaits you in Hades itself? The vast majority of the dead, the ordinary people like you, are consigned to the asphodel meadows. This is not a field of beautiful flowers. It is a gray, spectral landscape where the shades drift, witless and bereft of memory, squeaking like bats. They have no consciousness of who they were, no memory of their loved ones. They are the hollowed-out husks of human beings. This is the great fear, not punishment, but erasure, the complete and total annihilation of your identity. There are special sections of the underworld. Of course, Tartarus, a dark pit of eternal torment, is reserved for the Titans and the truly legendary sinners, those who directly offended the gods. You are not important enough to merit such a fate. Elysium, a blissful paradise, is for the heroes, the demigods, the divinely favored. You are certainly not one of them. Your destiny, like that of almost everyone you know, is the endless gray twilight of the asphodel meadows. This worldview colors your entire life. It imbues it with a sense of tragic urgency. This life, this world of sunlight, struggle, pain, and fleeting joy, is all there is. There is no reward waiting for you in the afterlife. There is no promise of a better world to come. This makes your current suffering all the more poignant, and the small pleasures of life, a good harvest, a healthy child, a warm fire on a cold night, all the more precious. But it also fills you with a deep existential dread. You are clinging to a small, brightly lit raft in a vast, dark ocean of eternal meaninglessness, and you know with absolute certainty that one day the raft will sink and the darkness will claim you, not with a bang, but with a long, slow, silent fade to gray. You are told that theater is a gift to the city, a civic honor, a religious ritual of the highest order. It is an expression of the democratic soul of Athens, free and open to all citizens. This, like most things you are told by the men in power, is a carefully constructed lie, wrapped in the noble gauze of piety. For you, a day at the theater of Dionysus is not an artistic experience. It is a physical endurance test, a state-mandated exercise in collective brainwashing. and a brutal reminder of your place in the social order. The festival begins at dawn. You are herded with thousands of other men into the vast stone amphitheater carved into the side of the Acropolis. You do not get a comfortable seat. You get a patch of hard, cold stone, your knees jammed against the back of the man in front of you, your shoulders pressed against the sweaty bodies of the men beside you. There is no concept of personal space. You are a single, densely packed organism of Athenian citizenry, and you will remain this way for the next 8 to 10 hours. The sun begins its slow, merciless climb across the sky. There is no roof, no awning, no shade. You are completely exposed. The stone beneath you, cool in the morning, begins to absorb the heat, slowly transforming your seat into a skillet. The sun beats down on your head and neck, cooking your skin, making you dizzy. The glare reflecting off the white stone of the stage and the seats around you is blinding. By noon, you are lightheaded. Your tunic is plastered to your body with sweat, and you are nursing a throbbing headache. There are no intermissions. There are no snack bars. There are no bathrooms. If you need to relieve yourself, you must either find a discreet bush on the upper slopes of the hill, or make use of a clay pot passed along the rows, a practice that fills the air with the sharp, acrid stench of ammonia. You have brought a skin of water and perhaps a dry barley cake, which you consume while the actors in elaborate masks and costumes are declaiming on the stage below. This is not a pleasant outing. It is a siege. And the plays themselves. You are not here to be entertained. You are here to be educated, to be morally instructed, to have the core values of the state hammered into your soul. The tragedies are a relentless parade of human suffering. You watch as Oedipus blinds himself, as Medea murders her children, as Agamemnon is butchered in his own bathtub. These are stories of kings and heroes, of great houses brought low by pride, fate, and the wrath of the gods. They are designed to instill in you a sense of awe and terror, to remind you of the fragility of human fortune and the unassailable power of the divine and the state. You are not meant to identify with these characters. You are meant to be humbled by their fall. It is a form of psychological conditioning, a spectacle of horror that reinforces the existing order. You weep, yes, but your tears are not cathartic. They are tears of fear. Then come the comedies. These are not light-hearted romps. They are savage, biting satires, filled with grotesque masks, giant leather phalluses, and jokes about defecation, flatulence, and sex. They mock politicians, philosophers, and rival city-states with a viciousness that would be shocking even by modern standards. But this is not an expression of free speech, as you might understand it. It is a controlled release valve, a state-sanctioned space for mockery that ultimately reinforces the system by making dissent seem ridiculous and absurd. You laugh, but it is a nervous, uncomfortable laughter, the laughter of a man who knows the boundaries and is careful not to cross them. Throughout the day, you are not a passive observer. You are a participant in a piece of political theater. You are expected to react, to show your approval or disapproval. You cheer, you boo, you hiss. You throw olive pits at the actors you dislike. Your collective reaction is a barometer of public opinion, a tool the city's leaders use to gauge the mood of the populace. You are not just watching a play. You are performing your role as a citizen, a member of the chorus in the grand drama of Athenian democracy. By the time the last play ends and the sun begins to set, you are physically and emotionally exhausted. You are sunburned, dehydrated, and your body aches from sitting on the hard stone all day. You stumble out of the theater, your ears ringing with the declamations of actors and the roar of the crowd. You have not been entertained. You have been processed. You have been reminded of the power of the gods, the authority of the state, and your own small, insignificant place within the grand, brutal scheme of things. The theater is not a gift. It is an instrument of power, as cold and as hard as the stone seats on which you sat. You are told to look up, to gaze upon the Acropolis, the crown jewel of Athens, and feel a surge of civic pride. You see the Parthenon, a sublime vision of mathematical perfection, its white marble columns seeming to float against the brilliant blue of the Attic sky. It is, you are told, a testament to the glory of your city, a monument to the triumph of democracy, reason, and the goddess Athena herself. It is a symbol of everything that makes you an Athenian superior to the barbarians who live in the darkness beyond your borders. But you know the truth. You do not see a symbol. You see a tombstone. You see a tombstone. You see a monument built not of marble and gold, but of blood, sweat, and stolen treasure. Your pride is tainted with the bitter knowledge of its true cost, a cost paid by bodies other than your own. You remember the endless train of ox carts groaning under the weight of massive marble blocks, dragging them up the steep slope to the summit. You remember the sounds that echoed across the city for years, the sharp, percussive ring of thousands of hammers and chisels, the shouting of foremen, the crack of whips. You see the faces of the men who did the work. They were not the proud citizens of Pericles' speeches. They were a vast, anonymous army of laborers, medics, foreign residents with no political rights, who were paid a pittance for their specialized skills, and slaves, thousands upon thousands of slaves. You see the men in the quarries of Mount Pentelicus, their bodies caked in white dust, their lungs slowly turning to stone as they breathed in the fine, sharp particles. You see them hacking away at the rock face under a relentless sun, their muscles straining, their lives shortened with every block they freed from the earth. You see the slaves in the silver mines of Larion, the ones who did not die in the darkness, their bodies broken, but their labor still needed. They were the ones who dug the silver that paid for all this glory, the silver that was extracted from the earth, and then extracted from the Delian League, the alliance of Greek states that Athens had transformed into its own personal empire. The Parthenon is not a monument to democracy. It is a monument to imperial ambition. Every fluted column, every sculpted metope, was paid for with the tribute money forcibly collected from your supposed allies, cities that were threatened with annihilation if they dared to refuse. The great ivory and gold statue of Athena that stood inside the temple, a wonder of the ancient world, was forged from the fear and resentment of 100 other Greek cities. You see the building not as a temple, but as a giant, glittering trophy, a declaration of Athens' mastery over its subjects. And you see the human cost on the construction site itself. You've heard the stories. The men who fell from the rickety wooden scaffolding, their bodies broken on the rocks below. The man who had his hand crushed by a falling block of marble. There were no safety regulations, no compensation for the injured. A broken body was simply discarded and replaced. The pursuit of architectural perfection was relentless, and human life was a cheap and expendable resource. When you look at the frieze, the continuous band of sculpture that wrapped around the inner chamber, you see a procession of proud horsemen and graceful maidens. It is a beautiful, idealized image of the Athenian people. But you know that the hands that carved this idealized vision were not those of the horsemen or the maidens. They were the gnarled, calloused, and often enslaved hands of artisans who would never be allowed to participate in the procession they were immortalizing in stone. So when the orator in the assembly points to the Acropolis and speaks of our glory, a cold, cynical knot tightens in your gut. It is not your glory, it is their glory. It is the glory of the politicians who commissioned it, the generals who funded it with the spoils of war, and the aristocrats who watch its construction from their shaded courtyards. For you, the Parthenon is a constant, looming reminder of the vast, unbridgeable chasm between the city's ideals and its brutal reality. It is a beautiful lie, told in stone, built on the bent backs and forgotten graves of the invisible. It is not a home for a goddess. It is the most beautiful and most expensive tombstone in the world. Democracy. The word is spoken with a reverence usually reserved for the gods. It is the great Athenian invention, the system that gives power to the people, that makes every citizen a king in his own right. In the Pnyx, the open-air assembly, where the laws are made, you are told that your voice matters, that your vote can shape the destiny of the city. You listen to the orators, their voices ringing with passion, and for a fleeting moment, you allow yourself to believe it. Then you look around, and the illusion shatters. This is not the rule of the people. This is a private club, and you are not a member. First, consider who is not here. Your wife is not here. Your wife is not here. Your daughter is not here. No women are here. Their opinions are considered irrelevant. Their voices a distraction from the serious business of men. The medics, the foreign-born craftsmen and merchants who make up a huge portion of the city's population are not here. They pay taxes, they serve in the military, but they have no vote. Their contribution is welcome. Their participation is forbidden. And the slaves, the vast, silent workforce that underpins the entire economy, are certainly not here. They are not even considered human beings, let alone political actors. When you add it all up, you realize that this grand assembly, this supposed embodiment of the popular will, represents perhaps 10 to 20% of the people who actually live in Athens. This is not democracy. This is a shareholders' meeting for a very exclusive corporation. Now, look at who's here. In theory, every male citizen over the age of 18 has the right to attend and vote. But in practice, who can afford to? The assembly is held during the day. If you are a farmer who lives a day's walk from the city, can you afford to abandon your fields, to lose a crucial day of planting or harvesting, to come and listen to men argue? If you are a potter or a blacksmith, can you afford to close your workshop, to lose a day's income, the income that feeds your family? For a time, the state offered a small payment for attendance, a recognition of this very problem, but it was barely enough to live on, and was often the subject of ridicule by the wealthy, who saw it as paying the rabble to show up. So the assembly is dominated by two groups: the urban poor, who have little to lose by attending and can be easily swayed by a charismatic speaker and the promise of a small payment, and the wealthy aristocrats. It is the aristocrats who truly run the show. They are the ones with the education in rhetoric, the ones who can speak with eloquence and confidence, the ones who know how to manipulate the emotions of the crowd. You watch as a wealthy landowner, his fine cloak arranged just so, steps up to the speaker's platform. He speaks of honor, of glory, of the destiny of Athens. His arguments are complex, his sentences perfectly formed. You, a simple craftsman, might have a gut feeling that what he is proposing, another expensive, risky military expedition, perhaps is a bad idea. But how can you stand up and articulate that feeling? How can you, with your rough accent and your simple vocabulary, hope to compete with him? To speak in the assembly is to expose yourself to public scrutiny, to risk being shouted down, mocked, or humiliated. It is easier and safer to remain silent. So you listen. You listen as the powerful men debate issues that will have life or death consequences for you and your sons. They vote to go to war, and it is your son who will have to serve on a trireme. They vote to raise taxes to fund a new temple, and it is you who will have to pay. They are playing a game with your life, and your only role is to cast a vote, your decision often based not on a careful consideration of the facts, but on which speaker was more persuasive, more charming, or promised more spoils. This is not the rule of the people. It is the rule of the best talkers. It is a system that favors charisma over wisdom, rhetoric over reality. You see how easily the crowd can be swayed, how a clever orator can whip them into a frenzy of patriotic fervor or paranoid fear. You have seen them vote for disastrous military campaigns. You have seen them condemn their own successful generals out of petty jealousy. The democracy you are a part of feels less like a rational system of government and more like a fickle, unpredictable, and extremely dangerous beast. You leave the Pnyx at the end of the day, the words of the orator still ringing in your ears. You have participated in democracy. You have cast your vote, and yet you feel a profound sense of powerlessness. You have not shaped the destiny of your city. You have merely ratified the will of the powerful men who know how to play the game. The democracy of Athens is a beautiful, elaborate, and ultimately hollow spectacle. It is a private club with a guest policy, and you are, and always will be, just a guest. The names are spoken like incantations. Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, they are the titans of thought, the architects of Western consciousness, the men whose ideas, you are told, shaped the very foundations of your world. Their dialogues and treatises are presented as the pinnacle of Greek achievement, a legacy of pure reason that has echoed through the millennia. In the quiet groves of the Academy and the shaded walkways of the Lyceum, they debated the nature of reality, the form of the good, the essence of the soul. But for the 99% of the Greek world, for you, these men and their grand ideas might as well have been debating on the moon. Their existence was a rumor, their philosophy a language you did not speak, and their impact on your actual lived reality was precisely zero. You do not spend your days contemplating the eternal forms. You spend them contemplating the weather. The questions that occupy your mind are not, what is virtue, but will it rain before my crops wither and die? And is that black cloud on the horizon a storm or a sign of divine anger? Your life is governed by the immediate, the tangible, the brutally physical. The eternal truths you grapple with are the eternal truth of hunger, the eternal truth of exhaustion, and the eternal truth of debt. Imagine you are a fisherman, mending your nets on the shore of the Piraeus. Your hands are stiff and sore. Your skin is cracked and burned by the sun and salt. A young wealthy man walks by, a student from Plato's Academy, and begins to explain his master's theory of forms. He tells you that the net in your hands is not a real net. It is merely a shadow, an imperfect copy of the ideal, eternal form of netness that exists in a higher realm of pure thought. You stare at him. You look at the net you wove with your own hands, the tool that feeds your family, the object whose every knot and tear you know intimately. And you look at this soft-handed young man, his head filled with celestial blueprints, and you feel a surge of contempt so pure it is almost a physical force. You do not argue with him. You turn back to your work. His reality is a luxury you cannot afford. The great ethical debates of the philosophers are a distant, incomprehensible noise. Aristotle writes treatises on eudaimonia, the flourishing life, which he argues is achieved through the rational exercise of virtue. For you, a flourishing life is a season without a blight on your olives, a winter where none of your children die from a lung infection. The choices you make are not between courage and cowardice, but between selling your last goat to pay a debt or letting your family starve. Your ethical landscape is not a serene field for the cultivation of character. It is a brutal zero-sum battlefield of survival. The political theories of the great thinkers are even more alien. Plato, in his Republic, dreams of a state ruled by philosopher kings, a society of perfect order and justice. You live in a world ruled by your landlord, a man whose only philosophy is the acquisition of more land. The laws that govern your life are not the product of lofty reason, but of naked power and inherited privilege. The philosopher's intricate models of the ideal state are, from your perspective, a kind of elaborate fantasy, a game for men who have never had to worry about where their next meal is coming from. Who then are the thinkers who actually shape your world? They are not the men in the academy. They are the local priest who tells you which sacrifices will appease the gods and ward off a plague. They are the traveling oracle who interprets a strange dream and tells you whether to buy a new ox. They are the old women in your village who know which herbs can bring down a fever and which ones can induce an abortion. This is the intellectual ecosystem you inhabit. It is a world of practical magic, divine threats, and inherited folk wisdom. It is messy, contradictory, and terrifying, but it is real. It is the system you use to navigate your life. The great irony is that the philosophers, in their quest for universal truths, were utterly blind to the universe you inhabited. Their ideas were not built for you. They were built for men like them. They did not speak to your experience. They rendered it invisible. The legacy of the great thinkers is not a shared inheritance. It is a class heirloom, a beautiful, intricate artifact from a world that was never yours. For the vast majority of the people who lived and died in ancient Greece, the names Plato and Aristotle meant nothing. The names that mattered were the names of the gods who might kill you, and the name of the landlord who owned you. Your life has been a relentless struggle, a long war waged against hunger, disease, and the indifference of the gods. You have worked until your back has bent, and your hands have become gnarled claws. You have loved, you have grieved, you have feared, you have existed. And now it is ending. The final act of your quiet, unchronicled tragedy is at hand. You die, not on a glorious battlefield, not in a serene philosophical grove, but on a straw mat in the corner of your small, dark house, your family's hushed sobs, the only music that marks your passing. There will be no grand funeral oration for you. There will be no marble stele carved with your image, no laudatory epigram celebrating your virtues. These are the final luxuries of the rich. One last performance of status before the curtain falls. Your legacy is far more ephemeral. It is the raw, keening grief of your wife, the bewildered fear in your children's eyes. It is the small space you occupied in the world, a space that is now and forever empty. Your family performs the necessary rites, their actions dictated by a deep, primal fear. They wash your body. They place the coin in your mouth for the ferryman. They bury you quickly, outside the city walls, in a simple pit dug into the hard earth. There is no coffin. Your body, wrapped in a worn shroud, is laid directly in the soil. They place a rough, uncut stone over the spot, not as a monument, but as a simple marker, a way to know where you lie, at least for a while. And then, the forgetting begins. It is a slow, inevitable process, like the erosion of a riverbank. For a year, perhaps, Your family will make the proper offerings at your grave on the designated days. Your wife will speak of you. Your children will remember your face, but time is a relentless solvent. Your wife may remarry out of necessity. Your children will grow, their memories of you blurring, softening, fading like an old fresco exposed to the sun. The rough stone that marks your grave will be toppled by a winter storm, or be taken by a neighbor to mend a broken wall. The exact spot where you were laid to rest will be lost. Within a single generation, you are gone. Your name is no longer spoken. The stories of your life, the small joys and immense sorrows that made up your existence, have vanished. You have become utterly and completely anonymous. You have been absorbed back into the great, silent mass of the unremembered dead. You are the human dust upon which the great monuments were built. You are the forgotten soil from which the great ideas grew. Your entire life, a universe of experience, has been compressed into a single, unreadable layer of earth. The archaeologists of the future will not find you. They will find the Parthenon, the painted pottery of the aristocrats, the inscriptions that list the names of the powerful. They will piece together a story of your civilization from these glittering fragments, a story of gods, heroes, and philosophers. Your story, the story of the 99%, is not written in stone. It is written in bone, and it has long since turned to dust. Your final and most profound legacy is your own silence. You are the vast, spectral chorus of the unnamed, the unheard, and the unmourned. So now, as the night deepens, let's leave this world of harsh sun and hard stone. Let the dust settle. The echoes of the agora fade. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer grows silent. The whispers of the shades in the underworld recede into the darkness. The struggles you've witnessed tonight are not yours to bear. The back-breaking labor, the gnawing hunger, the constant humming fear, let them go. They belong to a time long past, to ghosts whose stories we can only guess at. You are safe in your own time, in your own bed. Feel the weight of your own body, not as a failing machine, but as a vessel of comfort. Feel the softness of your pillow, a luxury those ancient souls could never have imagined. Listen to the quiet sounds of your own world, the gentle hum of electricity, the distant sound of a car, the steady, rhythmic beat of your own heart. These are the sounds of peace. There are no angry gods watching from the clouds, no curses lurking in a neighbor's envious gaze. The only omens tonight are those of rest. Let the darkness be a soft blanket, not a place of fear. Let the silence be a sanctuary, not a void. The journey is over. You have walked through the sun-baked streets. You have felt the grit of the barley bread. You have heard the silent screams of the forgotten. Now it is time to return. Close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath, and another. Let the tension leave your shoulders, your back, your hands. You are not a slave to necessity. You are free to rest. Let the ghosts of ancient Greece fade into the mists of history. Their fight is done, and yours, for tonight, is over too. Let the darkness cradle you. Let your thoughts drift away like smoke. There is nothing left to do now but to sleep. Just sleep.